Well, hello again. This is Brian Copeland talking. Welcome to another edition of Copeland's Corner. If you're watching us on the Really American channel, this is our first show on this channel, and we are very proud to be a part of this channel and of this network. I'm a big fan of what Really American is trying to do in terms of pushing ideas out into the mainstream that need to be things that people really need to hear, especially at this time in our American history. So what we do, if this is the first time that you've seen us, we do a segment that's called Headliners on the Headlines. And I am a stand-up comic as well as a writer and a TV and radio personality here in the Bay Area. And I get three comic buddies of mine or friends of mine who are involved in show business, and we do a roundtable where we talk about the news of the week. So with that said, let's go ahead with this week's edition of Headliners on the Headlines. This is the part of the podcast that we call Headliners on the Headlines. Joining me this week on my distinguished panel of comics, Don Reed, who, from The Tonight Show, and you got so much work on so many different things. What should I be plugging for you? When I introduce you, what should I be saying? So many things. I say something different every time.
Presently, Redwood Nights Storytelling Under the Stars at Deer Park Villa. That's
okay.
The shiny thing right now.
We should say where that is because we are, international now.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Fairfax, California in Marin. Yeah.
Okay. Marin County.
Justin's been on there.
And Justin, apparently my invitation got lost, but Justin Lockwood. How you doing, Justin? What are we mentioning for you?
Well, I'm going to be on a show with Dawn a week from Saturday. Where is that show, Dawn?
In Novato. That's funny stand-up and storytelling.
Yeah, that's a really fun show. It's this kind of like long form stand up with some storytelling elements. It's a lot of fun. We did one couple, maybe 2-3 weeks ago in San Francisco at the Battery. Great show.
Yeah, those storytelling shows are fun because they're like stand up without the jokes.
Yeah. Or better
otherwise known as a one-man show.
Can I ask you something? Brian? Why do you have to hurt? Why turn down? Why
I
not
heard because I love. And last but certainly not least, a legend in San Francisco comedy, Mr. Tom Sawyer, one of the founders of Cobb's Comedy Club, the original Cobb's Comedy Club that nurtured so much incredible and world-renowned talent, and now part of a documentary called The Comedy Club that you can see it's on Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah, Prime, Tubi, Plex, all your favorite streaming sites.
All of your favorite streaming sites. All right. So the way this works for those who are seeing this for the first time is we just talk. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's heavy. Today is going to be a mostly heavy day because we've got the Trump jury is now deliberating. It is Wednesday. We dropped this on Thursday. So by the time you see this, there may be a verdict already. But the most recent news, I don't know if you guys have seen this. This just broke in the last hour. The jury has asked for readback on 4 different parts of the transcript so far that have to do with David Pecker, which is, can you imagine having that name running the National Enquirer and your last name is Pecker?
Why wouldn't you change it?
Why wouldn't you change it?
Yeah.
You think about people that just have to, just a really unfortunate last names. Like Tim Allen. You know what Tim Allen's real name is?
What?
Nobody. Really? Timothy Dick.
Wow.
And so Timothy Dick.
Yeah.
And
that would be like when is a David Dick? When he's a pecker. There you go. There you go, kids.
By the way, we're very highbrow. If you've never seen us before, we're
right in the toilet.
Very, very highbrow.
Just pretend it's Twitter.
That's how he came up with tool time.
He will hammer anything.
Well, it could be indicative of the fact that they're being very, very thorough in terms of going over all of the evidence as they make this decision. Or, however, I do remember the OJ trial, which, by the way, the murder was 30 years ago next month, I just read. And the OJ trial, they asked for, the very first day, they asked for a readback on what the limo driver's testimony was. And all the analysts are going, oh, they're going to be here for a long time. So they have a year's worth of evidence to go through. They're asking for readbacks on stuff like this. And then that's all they needed to hear. And then they said, okay. Now we're just going to ignore all the rest of it and let him go.
Yeah.
Let him go. So I guess I'll ask you this question, and that is, one, how closely are you following it? How close? Because there's so many Americans who are not following this at all, and who are just hearing from him and his blowhards who say there was no crime. So how closely are you following it? And number two, do you think he's guilty of a crime? Do you think he's committed a crime?
Well, somebody went to jail for a crime. That was Michael Cohen. So, and he was co-conspirator number 2 or 1 or with a bullet. And so
individual one.
Yeah. So to me, it's duh. I mean, that's why I wouldn't be on the jury. But at the same time, I just think that it couldn't be a guy who's more guilty, just put him in front. You put him in front of 81 of the things he's done in the last 30 years, and guilty's probably where you're going to wind up because he's just that dude. He's sitting there half asleep most of the time. I can't be bothered to keep my eyes awake. This is too much work.
Justin, Don, thoughts?
I didn't.
I was just in here kind of like thinking like, I always just go look back through history, and in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking like, well, it's not really a matter of whether or not he committed like a crime. It's a matter of, is the crime big enough to take down somebody of that size? Because the crime is always about the person. It's not about like, look, we send poor people to jail for years for stealing a candy bar. What does this guy got to do? The crime and the person are always in relationship with each other. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, did he commit a big enough crime to take down that guy? And I don't think he did. Really? I'll just be deeply surprised if any kind of major punishment comes of this.
Well, you know what the crime is, right? Sure. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, the crime is defrauding the American people in order to influence or interfere with an American election. That's what the crime is. All of this.
I'm pretty sure the crime is inflating his wealth in order to get.
Oh, you're thinking of a different case. Well,
we're not talking about that case.
That's his other case. Right.
That's his other case, and that's the one
that's
that he
97 on the crime list.
I mean, but going to that case, look, the burden of proof for a case like that is just enormous. It's in my mind, it's really relatable to why we almost never convict anybody for perjury, because not only do you have to convince a group of people that a crime was committed, we have to convince you that we did it knowingly and on purpose and so on and so forth. It's a huge burden of proof. And that's the way our legal system works. So, like I said, with both of these cases, I will just be deeply surprised if any actual legal outcome comes from it, because they're not easy. They're not easy cases to prove.
Well, there was a mountain of evidence here, man. You got the payoff checks. Michael Cohen took a second on his house of $130,000 to pay Stormy Daniels, and Trump paid him back monthly, called it legal fees, and he personally signed the checks. They personally signed the checks himself. And so you can't believe that Michael Cohen just took a second on his house to pay off a porn star for Trump out of the goodness of his heart.
If you want to look at it through the prism of presumption of innocence, it's just not that easy. And I mean, look, I'm not trying to be mean about this or anything, but like, this is just kind of something that liberals love to do in America, which is just assume over and over and over again that all of these people are going to be held accountable. And that just hasn't really worked out for us, has it?
That's a real good point.
Whether they're held accountable or not is completely different from whether they're actually guilty. And he has just an immense amount of evidence, including him stating to individuals, this will be better,
Well, it's different.
You better look
Being
for the
held
election.
accountable is the only thing that really matters in the long term. You know, you go back through history, you know, knowing people is guilty doesn't really help us create a different kind of future.
It may help the election. It could impact that to some
You think
Some swing voters, it
his
could.
people are watching this and getting influenced by it?
But his genuine people is about 75-80% of the Republican Party, which is about 30% of the American voting population. So that is a big difference. If 15 or 20% of his people just turned away because he got convicted, because now you're making a convicted felon the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. If those people just say, I'm not going to vote, he's screwed. He is right now. I think he's ahead in some polls, but I don't trust the polls.
Most
the
polls
poll said that there was going to be a red wave the last two elections, and neither time it's happened. And so I think that he's going to lose again, and he's losing in most of the swing states that he's in. I think this will put the cherry on top if he's convicted. So I think his people, I think his rabid fans are going to get even more outraged, but you can only vote once, at least that's what you're supposed to do in this country. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think, I think a lot of regular folks are just going to be turned off. The people who aren't really paying a bunch of attention, don't really know how dangerous he is. Those people are going to be, who's going to want to vote for a convicted felon for the United States?
Close to half of the country.
How can you make that argument?
I'm not saying
this is
but
the
we
same
keep saying
person.
Half the country, Brian. It's not the Republican Party. People who vote Republican, just the same as the Democrats. It's only like a third. Independents actually outnumber both Democrats, not together, but they outnumber the parties. There are more independent voters than than Democrats or Republicans.
Decline the state. Yeah.
I just don't understand that thinking, Tom, because I mean, this is the same man that talked about grabbing women by the pussy and all these terrible things, and you think that the conviction thing is going to make a difference? That
I don't think
make any sense.
No, I think the conviction thing makes a difference on 10 to 20% of Republicans.
Why?
I think why? Because you're electing.
The polls
a felon.
back that up. The polls do back that up. If you believe the polls that there's about that 10% to 20% that say if he's convicted, it will make them reconsider. Those who right now
I just don't believe that.
And again, if you the polls also said that Hillary was going to win in a landslide.
That just doesn't make any emotional sense.
Well, but here's something. There's a meme that was going around today that I thought made a great deal of sense, and that is that you cannot serve in the United States military if you're a convicted felon, yet we'll let the commander-in-chief be a convicted felon.
You can't vote in a number of states. You can't even vote in a number of states
Right.
if you're a convicted felon. Florida rolled a bunch of people off who were not even convicted felons, saying that they were convicted felons and were sued because of it. So you're talking about the president of the United States not even being allowed to vote, most likely in Florida, for himself because he's a convicted felon.
Wow.
It's a proud moment in our history.
Let me touch on one thing related, specific to the hypocrisy in the parties. When Clinton was deep stuck because of his interaction with that woman and the affair, there was a key Republican head, his name escapes me, who said, if he will do that and lie to his wife and his daughter, he's going to lie to the American people. So we can't trust. And then when Trump was in this, actually a worse situation, involving finances and a porn star, he said, why can't this man have his private life? That's his private business. That kind of hypocrisy is just kind of so blind to go ahead and shape it that way. So
we could do a whole 24-hour program of nothing but laying out the Republican hypocrisy. For God's sake, Mitch McConnell won't let Obama have his Supreme Court pick because it's an election year. And then when his guy loses and there's an open seat, he gets a pick as well. It's an election year, but it's, it's a different party. He's the president of a different party. So
it was like 6 weeks before the election. The other one was the other one was 9 or 10 months before the election.
Yeah. So it's just, there's so much of it. But speaking of Supreme Court picks, have you been following this Alito story?
That's fascinating.
So if you are not familiar with the story, Justice Alito has in front of his home, has a flagpole and flies the American flag.
Both of his homes.
In the days after January 6th, they flew the American flag in front of his house upside down. And that was a symbol of the Stop the Steal movement. So there were pictures that turned up, I think it was in the New York Times. And his response was, my wife did that. And apparently it was up for several days. My wife did that because she got into an argument with one of the neighbors and the neighbor called her the C word. So her response is to fly the flag upside down. It just makes
Brian.
Is that what you do?
Do I have to take a picture of the front of my house?
What's it? So, I mean, the neighbors also have all these signs up. They say like "fuck Trump" and a lot of expletives.
Oh, we need to watch.
They're my kind of people, but he has that flag flying upside down. But then also at his house in New Jersey, he has, and I don't know what the name of this flag is.
And his beach flag.
It's a white background, and there's a green tree, and it's actually an old.
It's reached to heaven or look to heaven or something. It's something with heaven.
That's what it is. Anyway, it's a very old flag. And what it is it's a flag that was popularized by this Christian leader who has a coalition that's trying to bring Christianity and basic faith back as the guiding principle of America. And he's made it this very popular symbol in January 6th. January 6th people brought, I think, 4 of them into the Capitol. So it's become a symbol of that as well. So he has that flag flying in New Jersey at his house. And then he has the upside down flag at his house in
it's his vacation home. And the New Jersey one is the vacation home.
I think the other one's in DC. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway. So it's like, it's not a coincidence. And then like today, he refused to recuse himself.
That was where I was going with this. Let me stop it for just a quick second. And that is that, there is a cry primarily from Democrats saying that he needs to recuse himself from any of the cases that the Supreme Court is looking at that deal with Donald Trump, the deal with the 2020 election, or the deal with January 6th. Since he's flying basically MAGA colors in front of his house, and he refuses to do it. And there is it's so maddening that you really are giving an entire branch of government absolute power. There is nothing that can remove them from those seats unless they die or unless they voluntarily retire. Same as Clarence Thomas will not recuse himself, as active as his wife has been. I mean, you can go through all of the money he's taking from billionaires and everything else, but as active as his wife was in trying to overturn that election. I mean, you got email or text from her to Mark Meadows like on January 6th. But he refuses. And there's the only remedy is impeachment. And to impeach them and to remove them, you need 60 votes, and you're not going to get it. You need 60 votes in the Senate, and you're not going to get it. So, I mean, it's just, this is probably the most corrupt Supreme Court we've ever had.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, actually.
And it's just frustrating that you're shaking your head. No? Yes? No?
I guess, again, it depends on like how far. I mean, look, we have we've had a Supreme Court that's upheld separate but equal. We've had Supreme Courts come down with some pretty weird things, and
but this is
I think there's a headspace that I don't believe that America has ever been a fair or good or righteous place. I don't think the Supreme Court has ever been a non-political body. And I think in this moment in time, part of what we are experiencing, and I think in the long haul it will be good for us, is there's a part of me that is really thankful for people like Alito who just give up the ghost. Just stop the act. Stop the pretending thing where it's like, oh, no. I'm a Supreme Court justice and I have no political affiliation and I don't have an opinion on abortion and blah, 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 blah. And stop the bull. Stop the BS. If you're going, just, I appreciate people who just come out and say, of course, I'm a supporter of Trump. What the hell are you talking about? Instead of this mealy-mouthed BS that we get from both parties about, well, there's a system and there's fairness and there's this and there's none of that. Cut it out. Just cut it out.
I think that's the thing that I think blew my mind the most with all the Trump stuff was how many things I thought were laws that are norms. Me too. Me too. I went, oh, he's going to get impeached for this. He's going to get impeached for that. I know you're not supposed to do that. I've been hearing for the last 30 years of my life that you're not supposed to do that. And here we are, and that gets done, and nothing happens. And it's the same thing with the Supreme Court. I mean, last I heard, you go in front of the Senate, you swear under oath that you're going to tell the truth, and there's supposed to be some consequence if you don't. Well, the last 3 justices that got confirmed said that Roe was settled law. Settled law. I'm not going to touch it. Settled law, and all 3 of them flipped that. They committed perjury. They were under oath. They said one thing, they did another. They committed perjury. Why are they still there?
Well, as mentioned, it's very rare that you see people prosecuted for perjury, and it is difficult to convict them because it has to do a lot with intent. It's interesting. I was in a civil lawsuit a number of years ago. I was a plaintiff in a civil lawsuit a number of years ago, and the other side was just, guy was on the stand was just lying. I mean, just every other word out of his mouth was a lie. And I said to my lawyer, he's committing perjury. And then he pulls me aside and goes, you know what? In every lawsuit, in every case, somebody's lying. If they prosecuted everyone who committed perjury, that's all they do.
And I don't think they do commit perjury, because when they're asked and they say it's settled law, that is the truth. That doesn't mean that if somebody is able to get a lawsuit in front of us, that we will not consider their lawsuit and consider changing the law.
And
that's not how the Supreme Court works. That's how our system works. And
that is a good point.
That we have allowed a very, very, a very smart group of people. Again, I can't disagree with them more. But these people who have worked for the last 30 years to overturn Roe v. Wade were patient.
They played the long game.
And just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And they outworked us.
And it's one of the things
that drives me crazy in our liberal politics right now is that we are not willing to look at ourselves and just say we're getting outworked.
Hold on, but this move, they're being devastated at the polls with this move. Places that have legendarily been super conservative and say, no, don't take that away. Don't do that. So that's working against them.
It's there. In fact, I was reading today that the Democrats are going to spend $100 million in battleground states solely on abortion ads. $100 million just on abortion ads because it drives out.
But guys, if we're able to get a Democratic president and a majority in the Senate or the House, then you can say that it made a difference. But until then, that's just not the case.
You got the
just the recent past elections. People got crushed over trying to support pro-life. They got crushed.
Fair.
That's why there was no red wave. That's the reason that there was no red wave. But there are other factors.
There was no wave this way or that way.
No, well, but historically, whenever there's a midterm election, the party that has the White House loses a double-digit number of seats, and that didn't happen this time. I mean, they ended up taking
not only did it,
barely.
Yeah. I think, what are they up to, 1 seat now?
Something like that.
They keep losing Republicans because Republicans keep saying, no, I'm retiring. I'm out of here. It's crazy.
That. We can't be happy about the idea that it's like, oh, okay, I guess we'll continue to lose slowly. Like, that can't be our rallying cry. Democrats,
well, the
slowing the demise of America. That can't be our thing.
The problem is that you got one party that is playing who has no real moral center. One's playing by the rules. The other one is laughing on the sidelines with a rule book on fire. No.
See, I deeply disagree with that. Democrats are just being obtuse and silly, sitting around going, oh, tisk, tisk. Shame on you. We're not all playing by the same. Guys, win. They're better at this than we are, and we want to stand around and go, oh, they're throwing elbows. They're not following the rules. How many times does that have to happen to you before you're the fool?
Yeah, I think you guys are saying the same, or the two of you are saying pretty much the same thing, and that is you got one party playing by the rules, the other that doesn't. It basically means you got one party that is bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Yes.
and
if you keep showing up with a knife over and over and over again, you're the fool.
Mm-hmm.
You're the fool.
But then you have anarchy because there are absolutely no rules. Everybody just throw out the rules.
You just have tougher political parties. You just have tougher political parties.
Then you can't trust anybody because everybody's lying.
Tougher. They need to get tougher, smarter, meaner.
Mm.
Meaner, I'm for. Meaner, I'm for.
I'm for meaner as well. I got excited about meaner.
Yeah,
tougher, smarter, meaner. That's why it's my wife and I, we were talking about like politics and like energy and just like energy. And you guys might disagree with this, but like, so I was not a big fan of Bill Clinton, not because of his politics, but because I just don't like that kind of guy. I didn't like him when he was running. I don't like that.
Never liked him either.
Boy energy. I don't like that kind of mouth. It's just not. It's not for me. But when I look at like Bill Clinton and I look at like Donald Trump, and I know that they're big pieces of degrees, but I look at them and it's like, no, that's the same kind of energy. That's the same kind of thing. Democrats love a guy who's just like is like looking at chicks and playing the saxophone, and we love that stuff. We all love that stuff. We love Bernie Sanders. We want some guy to show up and say, shut up, my turn to talk. Shut up, sit down. We all love that stuff. All of us. If Donald Trump was saying different stuff politically, we would be in love with him. No, his energy.
We've never been a time. He was he used to be a Democrat, and I hated him. I've never not hated him. When he was in political, when he was just on Larry King Live, I couldn't stand him. If he was getting free health care for everybody, you would be falling over in love with him, Tom. It's not his energy you dislike. It's his politics. If he's a bad person. I never liked Clinton. Up and said, I'm going to burn this place to the ground until everybody has free health care, until there's medical leave for everyone, until
he would never, ever
if he was there doing that stuff.
Who's that
guy?
Never
do that.
I'll vote for him. Who is he?
Guys, use your imagination.
Yeah.
Imagine Donald Trump, but he's Bernie Sanders politics.
Isn't this where the screen's supposed to do that wavy thing where we all imagine?
That's why I use the word imagine, Don. You have to imagine it. It's not.
He would never be that person. There's nothing to even imagine because he could never be that person. He's shown it. He has
I know what he's saying.
93 indictments against him. Yeah. So he's not that guy. He can never be.
Well, forget that it's Donald Trump. If it's another guy who has the same kind of gumption and who doesn't play by the rule book, but he's going to get us all the things that we want, that we think is great for our country. If that dude exists.
Even if he's a criminal. Exactly. I mean, people forget. I don't know. I mean, it's not like liberals don't have a long history of like unlawful, whether underground, extreme politics.
We just didn't popularize
those are extremists. They're left-wing extremists and right-wing.
It wasn't popular. But you have to admit, Al Capone did give the biggest candy bars at Halloween time. Here's the full-size ones. Kids love Al Capone.
Just last thing on Alito that I forgot to mention, and that is, and this broke on the New York Times about an hour and a half ago, is just in terms of that flag situation. Again, the official story was that Alito's wife, got into an argument with the neighbors over their signs, and that the neighbors called her the C word, and so she flew the flag upside down. Well, the New York Times has found out that actually the flag had been up for several days before this confrontation happened. So it's just a flat out lie. It's just a flat out lie. So, I mean, so how do you have any? See, when I was a little kid, the first thing that I learned about with Supreme Court was the Warren Court. You know, the Warren Court was probably the most liberal court in the history of that branch of government that gave us things like defendants' rights and gave us things like equal rights and desegregation and things of that nature, things that were considered just. They believed in individual freedom, all of that. And so that's how I grew up looking at what a Supreme Court was supposed to do. They're supposed to be an umpire. They're supposed to be an impartial umpire calling balls and strikes, not walk in there saying, this is the team that I want to win. I'm going to ump the game, but I want this team to win. So it's a strike for the other team, but it's not a strike for the team that I like.
But there's organizations that spent millions and millions and millions of dollars getting these dudes in there. They didn't get in there. It wasn't an accident. These people weren't chosen in a hat. Their names weren't pulled out of a hat. They were groomed for this position, and they were. Like the last three aren't really that qualified, especially what's her face, Barrett.
Barrett, yeah. Or Kavanaugh, for God's sake.
Yeah, not.
I drank beer with Brett Kavanaugh, and not him, but him. When I was 16, I drank beer with Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah. I was at kegger parties with Brett Kavanaugh, and I don't belong in the Supreme Court either.
I mean, do you really want an impartial Supreme Court?
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
I want like 9. Cornell Wests. I want like 9 extreme liberals. I don't want
you want an activist court, and I want somebody. I want an umpire who's gonna call balls and strikes.
I want an umpire who's deeply, deeply liberal. I don't want some centrist.
Well, that's not
you do either.
That's not really. But that's not the job of that branch of government. That's not what that branch of government was created for. That branch of government was created for the purpose of interpreting the laws that are written and passed by the legislative branch. That's what their job is. They're supposed to take those laws and look at them and interpret them. And so you do need to. I don't want somebody who is an activist judge one way or the other. Even in terms of things that I like, things I might agree with. I want somebody who's going to be impartial. And, yes, there are bad decisions. You're right. Separate but equal. What was that? Plessy versus Ferguson was a separate but equal law. There have been bad decisions, of course, throughout history, a number of them. And eventually they end up being corrected. You end up with your for every Brown v. Board of Education, there are probably 3 or 4 other terrible decisions that eventually in the future will hopefully be turned around. But I still want at least then give me the appearance of impartiality. Why? I mean, they're not even trying to. I mean, for God's sake, Clarence Thomas, he's not even trying to even to pretend that he's impartial. I mean, when it's on the front page of the Washington Post that your wife was involved in trying to overturn a free and fair election, how in the hell do you sit on that court? I mean, actively involved. How the hell do you sit on that court and listen to arguments that are being made in relation to the very thing that your wife was involved in? How do you do that?
Wasn't one of the Supreme Court justices during when Nixon was about to be impeached? Didn't he recuse himself? That was a Supreme Court justice that was put on the court by Nixon.
Yes, and I can't remember who it was, but yes.
Yeah. So it's been done. It's not, and that was a Republican too. But that was also in the time when the Republicans actually went to Nixon and said, "Hey, we're all going to vote to get you out of office, but you can leave." And
he'd survive today.
And of course, my feeling is
he'd survive today.
He would
because Fox
today.
News. Mm-hmm. Fox News. There was no Fox News back then.
Oh, that's another thing that broke today is Barrett's husband, who's an attorney, just took a case defending Fox News and Fox Corporation against a $130 million libel suit. So, again, his wife's sitting on the Supreme Court and he is defending Fox News in court. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, it's just, they have the lowest approval rating that branch of government has ever had. And it's like, as an African-American.
And Roberts, what is Roberts doing? I mean, he doesn't even pretend to be reining anybody in.
He's not their boss.
No, he's not.
He's the titular chief justice, but he has no power over any of them.
As an African American growing up in this country, I just the courts, and if you look at history in the last 50 years, the downtrodden people and downtrodden women, people of color, we were able to look at the courts, look at the appellate courts, look at the Supreme Court as institutions, as bodies that were going to give us fairness and give us justice, and we can't do that anymore.
Can I ask a question? Because you brought up an interesting thing about Roberts not having the power. I get that. But my recollection of the last several Supreme Court justices that we've had that was the head of whatever, I forget.
Chief Justice.
They were vocal when people were out of line or acting not in the best interest. They were vocal about somebody in one of the other justices behaving badly.
Really? Do you have an example of that?
No, that's why I'm throwing it out there because it's kind of was my recollection that some of the justices at least had the illusion that you're a chief justice for something. You're the head guy for
we are, like I said before, we are in an era and a moment of dwindling illusion of the American dream, dwindling illusion of our political parties, dwindling illusion of our security, dwindling illusion of our deal that we make as a society. And
I agree with all that.
We are in a dwindling moment. And there's a part of me that is actually very excited about it and thinks that this thing is incredibly healthy for us.
Like shaking the cage.
I believe that just like in every relationship, until we look each other in the eye and say, hey, when I said that, I didn't really mean it. I don't want to be in an illusion relationship with anybody close to me or my society. I don't want to be in an illusion relationship at the macro or the micro. And we are in an illusion relationship at the macro. I don't want the illusion. At least look at me and give me the respect of saying, of course I'm this, or of course I'm that, because I want to know.
Who you're dealing with.
The lie is the insulting part to me. I don't want the lie.
Yeah.
Let me ask.
The lie is more insulting to me than your actual politics. If you look me in the eye and say, Justin, if it were up to me, I'd let you bleed out in the streets. I can at least look at you and say, okay, I know who you are. You know who I am. Mm-hmm. We're straight. I don't approve, but we're straight. But don't lie to me about who you are.
Let me ask you this. Do you fear violence if Trump is convicted? Do you fear violence if Trump is not elected?
Well, not in Benicia.
You never know.
I mean, I've met my neighbors. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Benicia is a very I don't know. Would you consider it?
I mean, Dave and Cindy next door, they're spry 70-year-olds, but I think I got them.
You can take them. Big art car community.
I think I can take them.
Mill Valley is going to be upended if anything happens at Trump.
People will take to the streets, buy a smoothie, and chant.
Hey, Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked in San Francisco.
Yeah.
In his house in San Francisco. So violence can happen anywhere. The guy is 80 years old, in his house, in his bed, sleeping. and he was attacked and ended up with a brain injury. So violence by these extremist nuts can happen anywhere.
I think it's just going to be anywhere. I think it's just going to be in a singular level like that. I don't think the thing about the January 6th event was that it was coordinated. It was around an event, and it was near the Capitol, and it was at a time when something was going on that they wanted to stop from happening. So, that's the problem with an election. It happens all over the country. What are you going to do? And if you do showing up. If you do things like, if you do dangerous things, that are especially, sorry, Kitty, as for Trump, they're going to be allowed to happen places where Trump's probably winning.
But they're not showing up. The fact of the matter is he has trumpeted suggesting showing up on his behalf. And people are like, we saw what happened January 6th. I'll just look at my TV and
there's not a whole lot of people.
I'm trying to imagine how it would happen, because even I understand this is radically different, but the only kind of major riot that has happened, I'm 46, that's happened during my lifetime is the Rodney King riots. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think, it's
Ferguson too.
Ferguson, I guess in my mind, and maybe it was the age I was at and the fact that I'd never say it, but I'm trying to imagine is there really going to be sections of towns somewhere in the country that are lit on fire by a bunch of angry Trump voters? It's hard for me to imagine anymore happening.
Well, I will tell you about this. I was just thinking about this the other day. Martin Luther King Jr., a man of peace, a man of nonviolence. His entire life and ministry and movement was dedicated towards nonviolence. And when he got assassinated, most cities with large African-American populations were almost burned to the ground with the riots when he got assassinated. If somebody ever did assassinate Trump, watch for that to happen. Except it won't be black people who'll be rioting. It'll be the right-wing extremists who are already planning, from what I understand, the right-wing extremists are already planning.
What'll be interesting about that is this, sorry, but it's I'm trying to, it's okay, so Trump is assassinated, and they're not going to be rioting in Compton. What are they going to do? Burn down Orange County? Fine, fuck it, burn it to the ground.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's we're going
to burn down Bergdorf's.
I could burn down all my Trump paraphernalia.
Marcus, grab the shoes.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening. They'd have to pick a target and then go there.
No, whenever you see that's the one thing I've never understood about when black people riot. We burn down our own neighborhoods.
Yeah, right.
So what do you mean they got to pick a target? Black people burn down their own neighborhoods.
What Tom is trying to picture is kind of the same thing I am, where it's you're right, and that's the horrible part of when I've seen things happen in Oakland and then LA in certain parts is that minority communities do tend to take out their anger on their own community. But I don't see well-to-do white people
But these are well-to-do.
Right. So then we have to go
white people.
Don't tell them
now
that,
we have to go to
they think they are.
What is the poor city in South Carolina where they're going to burn down their own trailer park? Are they really going to do it? I don't know.
That could be all their Teletubbies go up in smoke. And they're coming back. They just
love their pickup trucks. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, not going to happen, dude.
Well, I hope not, but I hope that we won't see violence one way or another. But he's beating the drum. It's not even a dog whistle. He's yelling it through a bullhorn.
And some of the stuff he says, a lot of the stuff he says goes on deaf ears too. Mm-hmm. There's that's why it took a coordinated effort on January 6th. It wasn't just him. It was all these groups. It was
the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers
and all the people in the and all the people in the White House and the Steve Bannons and the Stones, all those horrible people coordinating this thing. And I still think it probably got more out of hand than they had ever dreamed about.
What do you think about the fact that I mean,
takes a
if
village.
nothing else makes you not vote for this guy, the very fact that he says that the first thing he's going to do, or one of the first things he's going to do, is pardon the January 6th insurrectionists who are in prison, and if they're in, and they only put the worst of the worst in prison. Most of these people got a wrist slap, got a week, 2 weeks. Some may have gotten a month, but those who are doing some serious hard time. Those who he's got in the January 6th hostages choir singing the national anthem, those are all people who are there for a decade or more. Well, because they did some serious crap.
Somebody got 22 years, didn't they?
Yeah, some did. Yeah, for what was it? What was it? Not insurrection, sedition. So they got some convictions for sedition, and was it the Oath Keepers that they ended up getting the leadership of the Oath Keepers who were there, and they ended up getting like 20 something years. And, and the fact that he wants to pardon all those people, it was like, I think it was Fallon who had the line that's great. We want a president whose plan of action comes directly from the Joker.
I will say that I think that a lot of the problem too is the bubble, is the people that watch Fox News aren't hearing this or hearing a lot of this stuff. They edit that stuff out. They're even going to commercial break during rallies because of his stuttering and his crazy ramblings and stuff like that. They know that too much is people start tuning out, or people start going, he sounds a little crazier than normal today. So I think what it is like MSNBC, it's Trump, bad things, and we're already sold. I don't need to watch you say more bad things about Trump. And then Fox News say, Biden's old. And then I think once you get to the debates where you actually have Trump and Biden and the American people watching, then
you're like a Bond villain with your cat.
I know he loves a camera. That guy.
He's like, stop talking about this.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm hoping that the people on the fence who don't understand how important this election is wake up, and because I would like to personally, I'd love to see another landslide. So, and it was a landslide last election. Trump can believe what he wants to believe, but 9 million or 8 million votes is a lot.
It'll be bigger. But will the Electoral College line up properly? I have specific things I've said on this show before that some people don't seem to gather. I don't know if everybody gathers it properly, but speaking to my sons who are 28 and 25, who are aware of the Swifties, aware of what Kylie Jenner's power is. Some of them don't even know the issues, but they have 150, 300 million followers, and they've begun early on with a movement to have their folks vote.
Yeah, the Gen Zers
I
vote.
think it'll be more than 8 million, but will it line up with the game being played as Justin has, aligned? Will the game work out right, or will it be twisted?
Well, they're doing everything they can to suppress the vote in certain communities and every kind of dirty trick that there is, and they have help from the judicial branch. They have help from their right-wing allies in the Congress and in the Senate. So who the hell knows? Who the hell knows?
Honestly, I'm more worried about the Supreme Court doing something where they figure out a way to overturn the election themselves. There to me that's the most dangerous card. I think Biden will win. I think he'll win pretty handily, but that I don't think that could stop the Supreme Court. They scare me. I don't think there's any moral compass there any longer. Maybe there never was. Maybe
right.
We're talking. Maybe Justin's right about it.
I don't think Biden's going to win, but I hope you guys are right.
Yeah. With that, we're just about out of time. I'm going to end with something positive.
That was positive. Today. Thanks, Justin.
Yes. Yeah, thanks.
I just wanted to go.
And now I'd like to shoot myself on camera.
Baseball, Major League Baseball. You hear what Major League Baseball is doing today? For the first time ever, Major League Baseball has officially incorporated stats from the Negro Leagues.
Oh, I did see this. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So what that means is all the statistics, they're not Negro League statistics anymore. They are Major League Baseball statistics. And what that means is that Josh Gibson has taken a lot of Babe Ruth's records away.
Wow.
And then Barry Bonds has lost records. Willie Mays has lost records to some of these Negro League players. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out once these statistics are actually made public and printed. That guy really does like the camera, doesn't he?
What a tough position for Barry Bonds. Should we include the Negro League?
He's part of the steroid league.
That's different time, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, with that, guys, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure. Always lots to talk about. So come back to me again soon. Tom Sawyer, Justin Lockwood, Don Reed. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. That'll do it for us. We'll check you out next week with another show. Till then, be kind to your neighbor. He knows where you live.